Jimbo's Garage.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to Jimbo's Garage. Well, today we got a pretty good project coming into the shop. I've got to make 4 custom steel columns, 2 6-inch columns, 2 4-inch columns, with some 3/4 inch thick by 14-inch square steel plates on the bottom, and some custom buckets that are going to be going on the top. So it should be a good build, so let's get started. Okay, so I started out with some 3/16 plate that I had sheared at the metal supply store for the sizes that I thought I needed for the 4-inch and 6-inch buckets. It's just going to make my life a lot easier getting them all sheared for this build. And now I'm just laying out the the screw holes. I'm trying to get somewhere between 5 and 9 screws per plate here. The plates are different sizes. There's no really rhyme or reason to them, how many holes you need, but I'm just trying to get an equal amount. These screws are going to be, ultimately a big beam is going to be going in these buckets, and they're going to be screwed down. So we're just starting the drilling out process right here, and got a lot of holes to drill, and so everything's going along pretty good, and just drilling them all out. And you can see once I got a couple of them drilled out, I just used the other ones for kind of like a template to go ahead and mark. So I want these holes to be in the same spot, and then I'm just using a center punch right here to get the holes started per se. And there you go, I've got them all drilled out. Once I got them all drilled out, I just use a flap disc and kind of deburred everything front and back, and made them nice and smooth. And then just got some acetone and went through there and wiped them nice and clean front and back with the acetone, and we're ready to start fabricating these things. So we're starting to get things tacked together right here, and I did the best I could to think that I made the right measurements for these buckets, and I had these plates cut out, and I'm really interested to see how this is all going to come together with this first 6-inch bucket. And right away I realized that I made a mistake, and I didn't allow for the overlapping of one of the plates, so it was off a little bit, and so I had to make some adjustments, and I had to shear off or cut off about 3/8 of an inch off about 3 or 4 different plates right here to make everything fit. And here it is. You see me over at the Yoast, and I just used a cutoff wheel and cut off about 3/8 of an inch off of this plate right here. It didn't really affect any of the bolt hole or screw hole layout patterns at all. Just made it so everything lined up nice and square. And I've completed one 6-inch bucket. You see it sitting on my welding table here, and this is the 4-inch bucket. I just want to be sure that everything fits and works good and lines up, and then I can tack everything all out. And I got to say, I'm pretty pleased with it turned out, both the 4 and the 6-inch buckets. So I just finished tacking things together right here, and then finished up the other 2 buckets, the other 4 and the 6-inch bucket here. And as soon as we get these things all tacked into place, we're going to go ahead and start welding things out. Now the thing is with this, welding out, these are, hey, it turned out to be, these are pretty nice welds right here. And I hate to say it, but they're all going to get ground off and rounded off, and most of them are anyway. This particular bead right here is going to stay in place, but for the rest of them, this is going to be exposed bucket. And so we want it to look really nice and smooth and rounded off, and kind of a finished product per se. So once I got everything all welded out on all these buckets, I just got the grinder out and started grinding everything off. But turned out pretty good. You can see grinding right here. I started off with a grinding disc and ended up with a flap disc, and got everything smoothed out. And then there they are, all completed, nice and smooth and rounded over, and we're ready for the next step. Holy, well, I got my steel columns up here on my welding table, and I gotta say, that was a bit of a nightmare. These things are about 250 pounds a piece, 6-inch square tube, 1/4 thick wall. And for an old guy like me, muscling them up here by myself is a bit of a challenge. But nevertheless, I got them up here. So the next step is to go ahead and weld these 3/4 inch thick by 14-inch square steel plates to the bottom of these columns. And then when we get that done, we'll go ahead and put the buckets that I've completed on the top part of these columns, and we'll get her done. So let's get started. So once I got these beams up into place, I'm just kind of pushing things around and blocking things up and getting everything nice and level to start with. And so we can go ahead and get these plates welded on. Now I've pre-laid out the plates exactly 6 inch by 6 inch, and I'm using my strong hand mag square right here and my speed square to get everything nice and plumb and nice and square right on the mark, so it is nice and even. And I just went ahead and tacked all 4 corners in with some 6011, and once I got those things all tacked in, it's time to start the welding process. And well, that's what we did. Everything's ready to go, and here we go. Let's get things welded out. Okay, so we got the first plate welded on the first column right here, and that took 3 passes on each side to fill that up. 3/4 plate to 1/4 inch. That took a little bit, but hey, turned out pretty good. So I went ahead and I've tacked on the first bucket right here. Now I didn't film that because it literally took me a half hour just to get this bucket lined up perfectly, nice and plumb and everything. The cut was a little crooked on the tube steel when I got it in my shop, so I had to be sure everything was nice and plumb and square, but we managed to get that done. So I got it tacked up. So let's go ahead and get this thing welded out all the way around. Let's do it. Okay, well I got the second 6 inch column up here, and I just tacked the plate to the bottom right here. Again, I spent probably a half hour or so getting it absolutely perfect. The cut was a little off on the piece that they brought me. So I had to get everything perfectly plumb, perfectly square, and everything in the right exact spot. So I've done that. It took me about a half hour, so I got it tacked in, and so now it's time to start the welding process. Let's go ahead and get started and fire up the Everlast Power Arc 300 and let it roll. All right, so there's something else we have to do right here is weld on some 1/2 inch bolts. Now these are about 2.5 inches long, and as you can see, those are just some anchor bolts I had left over from a concrete pour, 1/2 inch bolts, and I was able to cut those off, and worked out pretty good for what we're using them for. The framer is going to be bolting a 2x6 and a 2x4 according to each size of the column to 2 sides of these columns, and then he'll be able to frame around that as well. So anyways, we got that done. It worked out pretty good, and there we go. We got the 2 6 inch columns are complete, and we're ready to start on the 4 inch. Oh yeah, wow, what a difference that is. Alright. Okay, so I went ahead and I've got the base plate tacked on, and I just went ahead and used my MIG gun to put 4 little bumps on each corner here. The reason why I did that is because with a MIG gun, it doesn't have a tendency to move around. If I was to put a 6010 or 6011 or any other type of rod in the Power Arc 300, just striking an arc or something like that could have possibly have moved the plate, and I had it perfectly plumbed and it was in a perfect position, and the least amount of force I could have used to move the plate, the better. So that's why I just used the MIG gun to pop 4 little tacks in each little corner. And now we've done that, so it's held in place. I can go ahead and take everything off, and we can go ahead and start welding. Spray a little PAM on here. This stuff is great. One thing I noticed about the Power Arc 300 here versus my other stick welding machines is, and I don't know what it is, but it seems to run a lot hotter amp-wise than say the PowerMake 205 in the stick mode. I've got this at 115 amps, and 115 amps it even still seems like it's burning hot. 115 amps on my PowerEye MiG 205 needs about 125 amps for a 1/8 Excalibur Lincoln here to burn real smooth. But at 115 amps, this thing even on this machine seems like it's a little hot. So don't really know if that's a difference or not, but anyways, let's do it. I know I mentioned it to you guys before, but you know, restriking a 7018 is difficult. Keep a little file handy. File the tip. Good to go. Okay, so I got the bucket all tacked into place right here. I got everything nice and plumb and level and right where I want it. And we're gonna go ahead and weld this out. This is gonna take a single pass all the way around, and I do notice I got just a little bit of a gap right here. Again, you know, those people down at the steel mill, they just can't seem to get some straight cuts, but I'm just gonna turn the amps down a little bit and we're just gonna burn this in really good, and it should be okay. We're gonna go all the way around, one single pass, and I'm going to repeat the same process with the other 4-inch column, and we'll have this project wrapped up. So let's get this thing welded out. So, you know, I got to say that after, you know, this being probably the last column I was doing, after getting the settings right on the welder, everything laid in there really nice, and, you know, the welds turned out pretty good. It took me a couple columns to get there, but we ended up getting there and getting the job complete, and I'm pretty happy with it turned out. Here's a couple of shots of some of the finished welds. You know, that being a stick weld, you can see I've actually got a MIG weld up there in that one joint. That one there is going to be exposed, so that turned out pretty good. And there's all 4 columns complete, 2 4-inch and 2 6-inch. I'm going to get a coat of primer on them, and this project is complete. Okay, well, the column project is complete, and I gotta say it was quite a bit of a challenge in a number of ways. One, those custom brackets that I had to make for the tops of each one of those columns to be sure that the angles were right and the holes were drilled in the proper position. Managed to get through that. That turned out pretty good. And those really big, thick 3/4 inch by 14 square steel plates that went on the bottoms, it was a good challenge for the brand new Everlast PowerArc 300 ST. But we managed to get that done and worked out really well. The other challenge was that I didn't capture on video, and I really wish I would have, and maybe that's something for me to consider for next time, was each one of those columns weighed about 300 or 400 pounds a piece, and I'm in here working by myself in the shop, so getting them up onto my table and maneuvering them across from my welding table and getting them flipped around and getting them in position to do all the welding, and then getting them off and getting them down on the ground. Man, I gotta tell you, it's a lot of work for one single guy in the shop, but I managed to finagle things around to make it happen. It turned out pretty good. I'm pretty pleased. So I'm anxious to see how these things work out in the field. Hope you guys enjoy this video. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to rate, comment, subscribe for more videos.
See you next time on Jimbo's Garage.